I thank the gentleman from Virginia. Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to this bill for a number of reasons, but I'd like to specifically address how the bill undermines science. And Congress enacted the ESA to conserve and protect endangered and threatened species and their habitats in the U.S. and abroad. Congress also recognized that scientists, not members of Congress, even ones like me with political science degrees, scientists have the necessary expertise to make decisions about species protection. And so the ESA requires that the Fish and Wildlife Service make the decisions regarding species listing and delisting. The law entrusts the service scientist to determine what is best for imperiled species, such as the gray wolf, using the best available science. And the ESA is credited as being one of the most science-based laws on the books. But this bill completely eliminates scientists from the decision-making process. It mandates that all gray wolves be removed from the ESA in the lower 48. And in doing so, it short-circuits the law's science-based process that determines when species have recovered and when protections are appropriately removed. Despite years of Republican efforts to ignore the science behind the ESA, we know it's been a huge success. 99% of listed species have continued to survive. 90% are on schedule to meet their recovery goals. So we should be working to make the gray wolf another one of those ESA success stories, not eliminating the protections that have helped put it on a path to recovery. When the gray wolf was listed in the early 1970s, there were only a few hundred left in the wild. Since then, scientists have shown that the reintroduction of gray wolves in the northern Rockies has been a huge ecological and economic success. I was able to see gray wolves in Yellowstone with Mr. Beyer and Mr. DeFazio earlier this year, and to see the ecosystem that's rebounded since their reintroduction. We are on the right track, but science shows that ESA protection is still needed. Currently, these wolves only occupy 5% of their historic range, only 36% of their suitable habitat. So while it's encouraging that the wolves are recovering and even coming into California for the first time in 90 years, a handful of these animals hardly shows that it's time for them to be delisted. Instead of enacting a new law to eliminate protections, we ought to be working with landowners, local and state agencies, and others to prevent conflicts so that we and wolves can both thrive. And I'd like to point out that if American citizens believe an agency does not follow the letter of the law under the ESA, they have a right to hold the government accountable in court. It's part of the system of checks and balances that must be protected. And politically driven, species-specific legislation like this sets a dangerous precedent for delisting. It opens the door to future partisan attacks on vulnerable species. Legislative delisting like this undermines the scientific process fundamental to the success of the Endangered Species Act. Scientists, not Congress, should make these decisions. I urge my colleagues to vote no and yield back the balance of my time.